Welcome to Worth Following Weekly, 5 minutes of mentoring on the topics and tactics surrounding leadership and your own development and growth. I'm your host, lead facilitator for Roots to Sky Consulting, Mark Legvold. We dug a little into the skills of self-reflection last week in our episode, and 3 key words you can use to become someone a little more reflective. Remember, the research by Raymond and Bailey suggested that the 442 executives that they studied were able to reflect on surprise, failure, and frustration. And that by focusing on those 3 key words, they were able to better understand themselves. And we are better able to understand ourselves and our own leadership style. We're also able to give ourselves grace as leaders in the times when we do experience failure, surprise, and frustration. But there's another great thing about becoming a leader who self-reflects, and that's your ability to teach others, mentor others, to develop that mindset too. Let me share a story. In leading an emergency response organization, I recall early in my tenure in that organization that there was a constant state of vigilance against anything surprising. Now, there's some good in that vigilance. People were aware and focused on the important parts of their work. That was good. But when that constant state of hypervigilance trickled into the work developing people and building leaders, it led to an atmosphere where any surprise, anything other than what was perceived as the norm, was unacceptable. Mistakes, regardless of the level of impact on the mission, were seen as a serious erosion of focus and vigilance. It took some work to refocus the organization for the betterment of the human beings that worked there by introducing the ability to accept surprises for what they were, observing them first, reflecting on the level of importance when it came to the overall outcome for the organization, and then reacting appropriately. It allowed for grace within the group. And eventually, it changed the mindset of the organization for the better without eroding their overall success. In fact, people began to grow in a different direction. But how does a leader who is worth following actually make that change in their organization? If you're already looking at your sticky note each day, reflecting within yourself on the things that surprise you, when you've experienced failure, and what has frustrated you, you are well on the way. Externalizing these statements is the key to bringing this mindset to your organization. Look, we've all sat in a meeting where someone comes in with their hair on fire about the latest emergency du jour. If you're wanting to bring this mindset into your organization, your reaction will either allow that fire to spread to others or help to quench the flames of overreaction. By simply stating, "Wow, that's really surprising," first, you begin to keep their fire out of your hair and even lead them to quench their own fire. By allowing for surprise to be a part of your leadership language, it keeps the emotions of fear and anger at bay. And in the initial stages of information gathering, that's important. It allows you to remain in control without relinquishing your responsibility to react and help, and even in some cases, take ownership of the problem. And by keeping in control, it helps your fiery-headed colleague see that surprise is acceptable in the organization, and that organizational grace in surprising situations can be an acceptable outcome. It doesn't mean that problems are ignored. It just gets us into a problem-solving mode faster, and normally with a better and more expedited outcome. Being a leader who's worth following means we have to focus on what is in front of us, but we also need to focus on what is way in front of us. As a leader worth following, we develop not only our goals and objectives for the day and week, but also for months and years. However, by doing this, we set ourselves up for the surprises that come, and sometimes that hinders our achievement and reaching our goals. It has to be okay. As a leader, let it be okay. Asking ourselves and then allowing the people we lead to ask themselves what has surprised us will build a stronger, more forgiving, and more resilient group that can meet the challenges when we don't meet our goals and make the adjustments more quickly. Next week on Worth Following Weekly, we'll explore one of the other reflective words and how to safely allow for failure in the teams you lead without lowering expectations for growth. Until then, have a great week and keep growing into a leader who is worth following.